Now, in this video, I want to give you the context and understanding for the 11 distinct pieces of the sales model, which this entire system is built around. Now, in each one of the 11 segments of the model, there are 5 core elements. There's a clear commitment objective for each piece. There's specific language patterns and phrases to build certainty and rapport. There's corresponding vocal tonalities so you sound natural and always conveying that right emotion. There's simple hooks to transition between pieces, so the system and the process feel seamless as you're anchoring logical and emotional certainty for your prospect. And last are small micro agreements that allow you to stay in the originator role, positioning you as an authority and a trusted advisor and expert. Now, it's important to note that these steps should always be followed in every single sales interaction, regardless of the situation. Even if you're picking up the relationship where maybe somebody else on your team left off, or if you're re-engaging after you have a break in the interaction with your prospect, you'll always start from the beginning to build rapport anew. Remember, it was George Bernard Shaw who said, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's taken place." And this rings especially true in sales, where assuming you've established that right level of rapport with your prospect can lead to missed opportunities and broken trust. So whether you're meeting a prospect for the first time over the phone, in person, or email or text, every aspect of the system is crucial for creating predictable results. Think of it like this. Learning a system in sales is akin to mastering a musical instrument. While each performance or piece of the music is unique, the musician must have a solid understanding of all the scales and chords and techniques. Just as a skilled musician intuitively selects the right notes and rhythms to create beautiful music, a sales professional must seamlessly integrate various aspects of the sales system to navigate different interactions and effectively connect with their prospect in an authentic and most ethical way. So we have to acknowledge the importance of mastering foundational skills and techniques while also highlighting the need for adaptability and intuition in applying them in diverse situations. Winging it, relying on trending talking points, simply won't cut it. We want to approach our work as sales professionals with the same dedication and seriousness of a surgeon. Think about it. There are reasons that a surgeon first learns to practice how to operate on cadavers and not on live human beings. And as dramatic as it may sound, it's only when you approach your work as a sales professional with this same level of dedication and seriousness as a surgeon does, that you will start to unlock the financial potential that truly reflects your capabilities. Now, we have to understand that there are always two dynamics at play here, right? There's the sales conversation and there's this sales process or structure that we call the model. So no matter if it's a sales conversation or if we're engaging with the prospect in email or text message, each interaction requires that we operate from this highest level of situational awareness and that we maintain our role as the originator or authority in the interaction to maintain rapport and always be building certainty. Remember, we use the word authority to describe you as a trusted expert advisor. It does not mean that you're taking or expressing power over a person. We also want to be very clear with you that everything we share in this model is a way to do things and not the way to do them, right? There are multiple closing statements, multiple intelligence gathering questions that you'll ask. There's dozens of ways to start a conversation and endless ways to overcome any objection and countless ways to ask for the order. And I'm going to show you many different ways and styles throughout our whole system. Now, because you are different from everyone else, and every prospect that you work with is different, we want you to think about what we share with you here in this model section as a glove. And your personal selling style, your brand, your offer represent a hand. You would never structurally change the hand to fit the glove. You would mold the glove to fit the hand. And that's what we want you to ultimately develop, sales dexterity. And after you learn the core model and have had a chance to try it out, out in your marketplace, I call this taking it for a walk. You walk with it for a few months or you play with it. You try it through an entire sales process, test it in different strategies. You're going to learn more things during the one-on-one live calls and you want to test those things. This is important for you that you have some baseline so that you can start to measure your results. And what we found is that our core model has by far been proven to be the very best system because it's easy to learn and it's easy to match with any personality style or learning style. In fact, it's so easy to learn, you can literally begin to use pieces of it as soon as you learn them. And the system creates a predictable result and response from your prospect. This makes it easy to go back and measure results and draw on feedback, whether that's through self-reflection or from your sales manager. And again, as you're going to see in the market section of the program, it's adaptable to every personality style, every learning style, making it productive as you learn. Now, aside from our structured 11-step model, our process also has weekly live interactive component to it, right? So as you begin to join in on the live training calls and the role-playing calls, you're going to see that if you ask one of our faculty members about a situation, every one of them is likely going to give you a different approach or a different unique way to that situation. And the reason for that is because each one of them is sharing what they do, right? Their own unique style. But what you'll find interesting is that while they may share different techniques, language patterns, or approaches, what you'll find in common with all of them is what's driving their tool selection or their approach is always focused on achieving the core commitment objective, maintaining rapport, building massive amount of certainty in the mind of the buyer. Said another way, they think differently, but they believe the same. So there will be and are multiple ways to lead your prospect to the next step of the model. But what doesn't ever change is the core of our system, maintaining rapport, building certainty, and working the commitment objective in front of you. We encourage you to join in as many of the calls as possible and give each faculty member a shot at helping you. And you'll likely find that you just kind of click with one or two of them. And the others, that's okay. Just make sure that you schedule the calls for the people that you want to work with. Now, we also have a segment of the platform called the Fast Track Learning Library that I mentioned earlier. Now, this is where we have short, direct-to-the-point teachings that address every possible situation that you may encounter in the sales process. And we give you multiple approaches, language patterns, and examples to try. Now, these are purposed to be focused on very specific topics, and you can use the word search to find the lesson that will serve you best. We call these our 323 lessons because each one you can search by keyword and the platform will suggest the very best video or videos that address that topic. Then when you open the link, you'll see right at the very top of the page 3 core learnings that you're going to be able to walk away with after you invest the time to watch the video. Then you can play the video, which will be less than about 20 minutes long. And at the end, we give you 3 very specific things you can do right now to implement what you just learned. 3 takeaways, a lesson in under 20 minutes, and 3 actions, all that you can put into play right now during your very next interaction. When used as a building block to the core model and your commitment objective at that point in the process, these fast-track lessons give you exactly what we want you to have through the entire program. Options, right? We want you to have multiple degrees of control and freedom when you're leading the sales interaction. And we want you to be able to test multiple approaches so you find the tools that serve you best and are the best match for your own unique personality. And we'll cover how to identify your style and the style of your buyers in the market module. Now, let's take a look at the 11-step core model. As I share the 11 steps, it's important to keep a few things in mind to ensure that you don't feel overwhelmed or stuck in any particular area. I'm going to be presenting the model as if we were on a cold call situation. This challenging scenario serves as the litmus test for the effectiveness of the techniques. Look, if they work in a cold call situation, you can trust that they'll work in any other sales situation you encounter. While I'll be demonstrating a specific way to apply each technique, remember that there are multiple approaches to achieving the commitment objective for each section. If any technique feels uncomfortable or doesn't align with your style, feel free to adapt it to suit your own preferences. It's important that you engage in the role-playing exercise with an open mind. It's unproductive to criticize or dismiss an idea before even giving it a fair shot. Approach this process with curiosity and a willingness to explore new possibilities. I've learned this, that learning something new requires a certain level of confidence. Avoid the trap of having too little confidence, where you doubt your ability to learn, or too much confidence, where you resist learning altogether. Embrace a balanced mindset that acknowledges that there's room for growth and improvement. Be open to considering how this system can be applied in various situations. Remember, I'm presenting it just in one way to use the techniques, but there are countless possibilities that we'll explore throughout the course. Lastly, approach this learning experience with new ears, right? As a beginner's mind. Stay receptive to new ideas and perspectives, even if they challenge your existing knowledge or beliefs. Now, here are the 11 steps to the system and the commitment objective for each. Number 1 is the first 4 seconds. The commitment objective here is to cause the prospect to think 3 things about you instantly, just by seeing you, hearing you, or reading your email or text. While starting this process, you're building in the mind of your prospect, in the mind of the buyer, absolute certainty that they are in good hands with you. And you should convey, number 1, that you are sharp as a tack, right? That there is something special. There's something different about you that they just like. It just kind of clicks with them. Number 2 is that you're enthusiastic about what you have to offer, about what you're sharing. Now, not in a goofy or immature kind of over-the-top way, but more kind of a contained enthusiasm, right? As though you simply can't wait to engage with them. And third, that you are an authority, that you come across as a seasoned veteran, a respected advisor, right? That you carry yourself with the authority of a senior statesman or stateswoman. Now, the second step is the opening. The commitment objective here is to build on and to continue to establish certainty in the mind of the buyer. Now, in this section, you're going to give the prospect a very clear and concise reason for the engagement with them right now. So the reason could be because they asked for information, or they were referred by a friend or a colleague. Perhaps you saw something about them in the news or social media that caused you to reach out to them and you wanted to connect or touch base with them to explore a next step. So the commitment objective here is to say all of this in one very short, easy to follow statement that builds certainty about why you are connecting with them today and what they can expect during this engagement. All of this is done in 30 seconds. This third step is what we call intelligence gathering phase, and is perhaps the most misunderstood piece of the system and where salespeople lose deals. I don't mean that the sales process ends. I mean that the deal is lost and the prospect will be too socially polite to tell you that you've blown it. There are multiple commitment objectives here, and I'll quickly explain each of them and come back with a little bit more context in a few minutes. So in this section, we want to continue to build and maintain that level of certainty and rapport, and we want to cause the prospect to be or have or feel several things here. Number 1 is we want them to be acutely aware of their problem, that they know exactly what their problem is. We also want them to be aware that we know what their problem is, that I understand it. Third is that I want them to be acutely aware that I'm the very best person to solve their problem. And fourth, I want them to be acutely aware that I know that they know that I'm the very best person to solve their problem. See, once I've accomplished creating this level of awareness in the mind of the prospect, I can then go on to begin to sell them, but not until I've accomplished all of these 4 things. And I'm going to do this by asking questions from the least invasive to the most invasive while maintaining rapport. You want to be careful of your tonality in this section. We don't want to feel as though you're coming across as though you're cross-examining them or that they feel like they're in an interrogation. We also don't want to solve their problem too fast. We want them to sit in their problem. So we'll cover more of how we do this during our tonality section. Now, once you've achieved this commitment objective, then we go on to step number 4. In this step, I'm going to, of course, build and maintain certainty. I'm going to work on maintaining rapport. I'm going to do what we call making the declaration of certainty. This is where, with 100% conviction in our language patterns, in our tonality, in our word choice, in our body language and physiology, that we are conveying absolute certainty, that we are sure that we are a perfect fit to solve their problem. That I'm absolutely 100% sure that I can solve their problem, and they know that I can solve their problem better than anyone else on the planet, bar none, hands done, take it to the bank. That level of certainty. And I can achieve this by saying something like this. Jim, based on everything you just shared, you're an absolute perfect fit for this premium package, and here's why. Again, based on what you are offering and the rapport you have with Jim, you will choose the very best tools of influence to make this declaration. And the commitment objective always stays the same here, conveying absolute certainty that after all the intelligence gathering that you've done with them for the last 20 or 30, maybe even 60 to 90 minutes, that everything they shared with you and everything you learned about their problem, and based on your experience as the expert, as the authority, you now declare them to be an absolute perfect fit. Now we begin where most people consider sales start. Step number 5, the process of the first sales presentation. As a side note here, isn't it funny? It's actually sad if you think about it, is that most salespeople believe that everything we just did in these last 4 major pieces of a model are the foundation of any sales relationship. They consider it relationship building. It's what most salespeople would call, breaking the ice. They simply fail to understand that a deal can be and often is lost in those first 4 seconds. Or that by breaking the ice and making meaningless small talk about what they have in common with the prospect, they likely just cost the deal. The truth is, failure to understand that the sales process and the sales presentation started at the very first interaction. And every single move and every word that was said after that has been judged by their prospect to either build certainty in you, your offering, and your company, or it created uncertainty or confusion. And we know confused people don't do anything. They want to think about it. They want to check with their husband. They want to check with their wife. They want to run it by the board. They want to wait till some other time in the future. So lack of awareness and training is the number 1 cause of lost sales. And after this course, you won't ever make those salesperson mistakes again, because you'll be operating as a true sales professional, one of the very best in the industry, a sales professional who doesn't wing it and doesn't leave their future up to chance and a, let's see what happens attitude. So let's look at where we are, right? We're establishing and building, maintaining certainty and rapport, right? We're building massive rapport with our prospect all along during the entire process. And we convey that we are an expert. We're an authority in this area. And we do this right in those first 4 seconds. We're sharp as a tack. And we establish a very clear and concise reason for engaging with them. We're not wasting their time. We're operating from purpose, right? And we do this in the opening statement, the reason for the engagement. We guide them through a well thought out and prepared series of questions, going from the least invasive to the most invasive, with the objective commitment being that they become acutely aware of exactly what their problem is and 100% certainty that we are the very best solution for them. And we do this in what we call the intelligence gathering phase. Then, and only then, when we know that they are acutely aware of their problem, acutely aware that we can solve their problem, acutely aware that we are the very best solution for the problem, and acutely aware that we know that they know that we're the very best person to solve the problem. We then make a declaration of certainty. We declare to them with absolute authority and certainty that either they are a perfect fit for us or that we are a perfect fit for them. And we do this in what we call the declaration of certainty. So now we can enter into what we call the first sales presentation. Now, the commitment objective here is to paint a picture for the client about 4 things. What's unique about you, something special about your company that sets you apart from the competition, something different about your offering, and an example of the transformation that's created when someone engages you, your company, and your offering. We call this painting the 4 corners, and we have an entire video that covers how to do this. We want to build emotional and logical certainty in the mind of the buyer. We aren't trying to tell them everything about us. We're not trying to tell them everything about the company. We're not going through this long list of features and benefits. We aren't telling them, all the great things about us and what others have said about us. We're not going through all the testimonials. In other words, as crazy as it sounds, we aren't going for the close. We're sharing just enough information for them to get a picture of what we can do for them and how we do it differently from everyone else. We want to show them that we are the authority they think we are. We're justifying their certainty in us. So again, the Four Corners is something unique, something special about you, something unique or special about the company, something different about your offering from everyone else, and something transformational, a client experience as a result of working with you, your company, and your offering. From here, we want to move to step 6, which is asking for the order. Now, the commitment objective here is to test and gauge their level of certainty. We know no matter how good we are, we just haven't built enough of an airtight, logical, and emotional case for our prospect to have a level 10 of certainty in the 3 areas that they have to have it in, right? See, we know that when we're working with our client, they have to have a level 10 of certainty in us. They have to have a level 10 certainty in the company. And they have to have a level 10 certainty in our offering. Now, that's a tall order this early in the game. Now, might some people be ready to close? Might they be ready to make that decision? Might they have that level of certainty? Of course. And for those folks, we will graciously off-ramp them from the process and close the deal by signing the contract or writing up the order. But you know what? This represents less than 20% of all buyers. Nearly 80% of your prospects are simply going to need more information and emotional certainty to make a decision. And this is especially true if you're selling higher ticket items or something that requires a longer term contract or commitment. So when we ask for the order here, we are asking them to buy into what I call the big picture, right? The big picture. In my business with our offering, it may sound something like this, right? So I'll say to Jim, Jim, you and your team are a perfect fit for our program, and here's why. So declaration of certainty. Now I'm going to paint the 4 corners. We've been serving companies just like yours at the highest level for more than 2 decades with our ironclad money-back guarantee that says if your team does not experience a sales increase that is greater than twice your financial investment, we refund your full investment. Now that's something about our company, right? Now I'll go on. I'll also personally be the person, Jim, to onboard your team so I can make sure your goals are front and center in how your team engages in the program. I've onboarded over 100 companies in 12 different countries all across the 11 sectors of the S&P 500. Now that's something about me. Then I go on. Our program is the only program which engages all the disciplines necessary for a sales professional. We have NLP training, social psychology, the use of hypnosis, the use of influence and persuasion techniques, and we do this in a way that is sensitive to the learning styles of everybody on your team. There are on-demand video training for your visual learners, Jim. All the lessons are recorded in the highest level of audio-digital format for your auditory learners. And what's even more is we offer no less than 40 hours of interactive role-playing and live Q&A sessions for your kinetic learners, as well as a 2-day live training that allows them to have that hands-on training feeling that no online program can deliver. We also have 5 hours of private one-on-one coaching for your team so you can customize the training right to your company goals. So that's something about the offer. In fact, a recent survey of our clients, Jim, showed that we scored a 99.7 rating with our clients 6 months after they completed the training, showing that the participants not only retained the information, but with 99.7% of them reporting no less than a 50% increase in team performance. Meaning not only did they retain the information, but they also retained the changes in the positive behavior. Now that's something about the transformation, right? So we can do all of this for you, Jim, for up to 12 team members, giving them unlimited access to the entire program resources and the 2-day live event for just $59.97. So less than $6,000 for the entire team. And if you'd like, we also offer an easy payment plan that we will self-finance so you can fund the program over the course of the engagement through the increased sales that they'll be making. I can have your team set up before the end of the day, and your team can have immediate access to all the resources. And by noon tomorrow, Jim, they'll be on their first live call. Sound fair enough? That's it. That's asking for the order. Sound fair enough? Right? That's the closing statement. And as I said, 20% of the prospects who've only gone through kind of half of the process say yes, and they buy on the spot. But we also know that short of kind of painting these four corners, it's likely not enough information for a majority of the prospects to have that emotional and logical certainty. So we wait for their reply. And when we get it, we step into step number 7 of the system, which is deflecting the welcomed and expected objection, because we know they're not ready. So what is likely going to happen after I ask Jim, fair enough, is that Jim is going to say, well, I kind of want to run it by my gym manager. Or, well, I need to kind of see more of the program or see the platform. Or, you know what, we're just starting the new quarter and we'd want to wait till the end of the quarter. So no matter what the objection is, what we know is that all objections in this case are the same. They're the same. They're just smoke screens for uncertainty. And if we listen really closely, we can determine where and what their uncertainty is. So then we can address it head on in the next step, which we call looping into the second presentation. So the transition into this next presentation and how we deal with that first objection is, very critical, because we want to overcome their uncertainty. We don't want to address that objection kind of head on, right? Because when we do that, what Jim does is he kind of digs into his position. So what we want to do is we want to get the prospect to make an agreement with us, some level of agreement. We call that a micro agreement. We want them to agree that what we're offering makes sense and could be a solution for them. And we do this by asking 2 very strategic questions while agreeing with their position. So it sounds something like this. Jim says, well, we have to speak to the manager about this before, I can commit to anything. And I say, you know what, Jim, I get it. When we're making decisions at our company like this, we too like to get the buy-in from everybody on the team and all the stakeholders. Let me ask you this. Do you like the idea? Does the idea make sense to you? 99.9999% of the time, what Jim is going to say is, yeah, I like the idea. I can see how this can help. And with that micro agreement, I immediately build on his energy and his agreement. And I say, exactly, because it really is a great decision for your team. And what's more is, and now I've earned the right to continue to talk. And now I go into the second sales presentation. And here is where I roll up my sleeves and I get to work. I begin to paint more of those 4 corners, and I address his uncertainty and the need to discuss this with his manager. I give him a clearer picture, and I do this by using a process from NLP and hypnosis. It's called future pacing. And what I do is I begin to build massive emotional and logical certainty by sharing more of the features and benefits of the offer, and share what the transformation is from those features and benefits by putting him right in the middle of the scenario. And we begin to deploy the principles of influence and persuasion, talking about the scarcity of time and what it costs him on waiting to make a decision. We share how others have integrated the offer in their business and the success that they had from doing so. Again, putting him in the scenario. We ask questions that antagonize the pain that we've uncovered during the intelligence gathering. And after giving more of the details and future pacing them, giving them enough information now to make a decision, now I go for the close. Again, assuming that if I do so, I don't break rapport, right? If I sense at any time that asking for the order again, like asking him now to buy, that would break rapport and trust, I will, in an elegant and non-confrontational way, address his objection, in this case needing approval from his manager, so that we may make a concession and activate reciprocity by saying something like this to Jim. Jim, I'm willing to meet with you and your manager and any of the stakeholders that you have so that I can share the platform with you and the team and allow them to speak with a client that we have currently and maybe a client that we've used in the past so that you can hear firsthand how others have had the benefits of the program and see how it can help you most. So what we see here is steps 9, 10, and 11 are all in play. They're flowing through the process, and you're using your intuition and your experience, and you're staying laser focused on the commitment objective and maintaining rapport. If I go for the close again after future pacing and they give me another objection, I will either deal with their objection kind of head on, as long as doing so doesn't break rapport, come across as pushy and confrontational, or as I read, and as I read their behavior, as I said, I may lower the action threshold and change the commitment objective from closing the deal to now just getting a second meeting with the stakeholders. Or if I think that Jim does have the authority to at least make some level of decision, I may lower the action threshold in the offer and say something like this to Jim. You know what, Jim? I hear and I appreciate what you're saying about wanting to discuss things with your manager. And before implementing the entire system with your team, why don't we do this? Is there any reason we don't have you make a fully refundable deposit for the program now and have just maybe 2 or 3 of your people jump into the program for a couple of weeks? So when we do meet with your manager and the other stakeholders, you'll have some real feedback from your team on the effectiveness of the program. And if you want to move forward then, we will lock in all the prices and bonuses that I spoke about before, and I'll apply the deposit to the balance. And if the team decides that, hey, this isn't a fit, I'll refund the full deposit, no questions asked within 24 hours. Jim, you've got nothing to lose. I'm so confident in this solution. It's the right next step. Sound fair enough? So here you see all of the 11 steps of the system in play.